The rain drummed against the tent covering my father's casket. Each drop echoed the hollowness spreading through my chest. As mourners dispersed, leaving me alone with my grief, I noticed him approaching Elliot, the CEO's son, impeccably dressed despite the downpour. He adjusted his gold cufflinks, eyes scanning the empty chairs before landing on me. "Adira," he said, voice soft but edges sharp. "Just wanted to say personally, take all the time you need for your healing process." His pause was deliberate. "The team can manage without you. We don't actually need you back." The words penetrated deeper than my grief. 20 years my father had given to that company. 2 years I devoted myself to our shared vision. "The project I started is being handled?" Elliot cut in, a smile forming. "Your father's notes were adequate. I've taken personal control of the manufacturing client. Don't worry your pretty head." He placed his hand on my shoulder, leaning close. "Between us, your position was always a courtesy to your father. Now that he's gone," he straightened his tie. "Well, priorities shift." As he walked away, droplets sliding off his expensive coat, something hardened inside me. Through tears, I watched him slide into his luxury car, already on his phone, laughing. I placed my hand on Dad's casket. "I promise," I whispered. "They'll learn exactly how much they need me." Before I share how I dismantled an entire company's leadership with nothing but my father's teachings and pure determination, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next proves that sometimes, revenge isn't just sweet, it's necessary. My name is Adira Levente, and until 2 months ago, I was the youngest systems architect at Bluecrest Engineering Consultancy. My father, Leo Levente, had been their genius problem solver for 2 decades, the quiet mastermind who turned failing industrial systems into profit machines. I'd grown up watching him sketch designs at our kitchen table, falling asleep to his gentle explanations of fluid dynamics and optimization algorithms. When I graduated with dual masters in systems engineering and sustainable design, joining him at Bluecrest felt inevitable. What wasn't inevitable was how quickly I'd become orphaned and unemployed. Dad and I had been working on something revolutionary, a complete efficiency overhaul for Meridian Manufacturing, Bluecrest's biggest client. Our process would cut their energy consumption by 40% while increasing output by 25%. Dad handled client relations while I perfected the technical aspects. We kept the full methodology between us, planning to unveil it together. Then came the aneurysm. Sudden, unstoppable. Dad was gone before I could say goodbye. At the funeral, most of Bluecrest attended. Conrad Hale, the CEO, embraced me with what seemed like genuine sadness. "Your father was irreplaceable," he'd said, "but your family now." Only his son Elliot didn't bother with pretense. The rain-soaked confrontation by my father's casket revealed his true intentions. He'd been waiting for this opportunity. I took 1 week off, just 7 days to bury my father and process my grief. When I returned to the office, my keycard access had been downgraded. My project files had been moved. My desk had been relocated to a corner workstation near the supply closet. "Temporary adjustments," the office manager explained nervously. "Direct orders from Operations Director Elliot." I stared at my new desk, devoid of the research materials I'd spent months compiling. My throat tightened, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I'd barely settled when my computer pinged with a calendar invite. Project reassignment meeting, 11 a.m. In the glass-walled conference room, Elliot sat at the head of the table, though his father technically outranked him. Conrad looked uncomfortable but remained silent as Elliot outlined the new direction. "In light of recent personnel changes," Elliot said, not even looking at me, "we've restructured project assignments. Adira, you'll be handling documentation and support for the Northeast regional clients." Documentation, support, busy work that any junior engineer could handle. "The Meridian project?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I'll be taking the lead," Elliot replied. "Your father left extensive notes, and I've been studying the industry for years. The client needs stability and seniority now." Stability and seniority, from someone who'd never once set foot on a manufacturing floor. "With respect," I said carefully, "that system design isn't complete. Dad and I were developing a proprietary approach which is documented in the company files, Elliot interrupted. It's intellectual property of Bluecrest, not the Levente family. Conrad cleared his throat. Adira, we value your contributions, but Elliot makes a valid point. Meridian represents 40% of our annual revenue. We can't risk any hiccups. I understood then. Conrad might have respected my father, but he feared losing his biggest client more. Elliot had convinced him I was a risk, not an asset. For the next 3 weeks, I complied. I documented minor projects. I supported junior engineers. I watched from the periphery as Elliot paraded around the office, boasting about his breakthrough approach for Meridian. During weekly status meetings, I sat silently while Elliot presented fragments of my father's work as his own. He stumbled over technical details, inventing explanations that made no engineering sense. Nobody questioned him, after all. He was the CEO's son and operations director. What Elliot didn't know was that my father and I had designed the system with deliberate interdependencies. Without understanding the core algorithm, which wasn't in any of the notes, the entire system would fail catastrophically under real-world conditions. The deadline approached for Meridian's final presentation. They required proof of concept before signing the 8-figure contract renewal. With unearned confidence, Elliot promised to deliver a complete implementation plan within 2 weeks. I stayed late every night, ostensibly catching up on my assigned documentation. In reality, I was tracking Elliot's progress through the shared project management system. He was building a house of cards using only half the blueprint. On a rainy Tuesday evening, exactly 1 month after my father's funeral, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Is this Adira Levente?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking. This is Talia Reeves, chief engineer at Meridian Manufacturing. Your father and I worked closely for years." My heart stuttered. "Yes, I remember. He spoke highly of you." "Something feels off about the proposal we're getting from Bluecrest," she said bluntly. "The approach being presented doesn't align with what your father described to me. He always mentioned your brilliance and how you two were revolutionizing the entire methodology." I gripped the phone tighter. "Did you speak with Elliot about your concerns?" "I tried. He dismissed them as technical details to be addressed later. Our CEO is getting nervous. We're making a massive investment here." A pause stretched between us. "Would you be willing to review our requirements directly?" she finally asked. "Off the record, of course." I closed my eyes, calculating risks and possibilities. "Send them over. I'll need access to your current system schematics as well." For the next 3 days, I barely slept. At my small apartment kitchen table, the same one where my father had taught me everything I knew, I built a complete implementation plan from scratch. I incorporated all the innovations my father and I had developed, plus refinements I'd been working on since his death. My proposal would save Meridian nearly 15% more than what Bluecrest had originally promised. I highlighted critical flaws in Elliot's approach, showing precisely where and how it would fail under operational conditions. On the 4th day, I sent the completed proposal to Talia with a simple message. "This is what my father and I envisioned. Use it however you see fit." She replied within hours, "Can you be at our headquarters Friday morning? Our CEO wants to meet you." I called in sick to Bluecrest on Friday. Instead of resting at home, I put on my best suit, the one I'd worn to my job interview with my father beaming proudly beside me, and headed to Meridian's headquarters. Talia met me in the lobby. "They're all upstairs," she said, "including the Bluecrest team." My stomach tightened. "They don't know I'm here." "No," she confirmed. "Our CEO, Naomi, wanted to see how their presentation played out first. You'll sit in the back. Don't say anything until we signal you." The boardroom was massive, with Meridian executives lining one side and the Bluecrest team, Conrad, Elliot, and 2 senior engineers, on the other. I slipped into a chair in the corner as Elliot stood to begin his presentation. He looked every inch the successful executive in his tailored suit, hair perfectly styled, expression confident. For nearly 40 minutes, he outlined what he called our innovative approach, fragments of my father's work cobbled together with standard industry practices. When the technical questions began, his facade cracked. He fumbled explanations, contradicted earlier statements, and grew increasingly defensive. This cooling subsystem, Meridian's production director pointed out, seems insufficient for your projected throughput. That's a minor calibration issue, Elliot stammered. We'll adjust during implementation. And these efficiency projections, another executive noted, they don't align with the energy inputs you've outlined. Conrad jumped in to help his son. We assure you, all calculations have been triple verified by our team. That's when Naomi Lin, Meridian's CEO, raised her hand, silencing the room. She was a small woman with commanding presence, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a precise bun. We've reviewed an alternative proposal, she announced, nodding to her assistant who began distributing copies to everyone in the room. My proposal. This addresses our actual needs and delivers significantly greater efficiency gains. The room fell silent as everyone flipped through the detailed document. Conrad's face drained of color as he recognized aspects of the design that went far beyond what they had prepared. We've decided to work directly with the author, Naomi continued, turning toward the back of the room. Ms. Levente, would you care to join us at the table? Every head swiveled toward me as I rose from my corner seat. Elliot's expression transformed from confusion to rage as I walked to the front of the room. This is highly inappropriate, Conrad sputtered. Adira is our employee. Any work she's done belongs to Bluecrest. Actually, Naomi replied coolly, Ms. Levente developed this on her own time, using our proprietary data that we shared directly with her, at our request. But ownership isn't the issue here. She smiled thinly. We're also acquiring controlling interest in your consultancy to ensure proper implementation. Conrad paled further. Acquiring? That's impossible. We're not for sale. Your minority shareholders disagree, Naomi replied. We've already secured their support. They're quite concerned about the company's direction since Leo Levente's passing. The truth dawned on Conrad's face. Those minority shareholders were retired engineers who had worked alongside my father for years, people who had watched Elliot's rapid rise with growing concern. This is corporate theft, Elliot hissed, glaring at me. You can't just… It's business, Naomi cut him off. Your business, which has consistently delivered excellence until recently. We aim to restore that excellence. She turned to me. Adira will lead the implementation as Meridian's representative. The meeting ended abruptly after that. As everyone filed out, Elliot blocked my path, his face contorted with anger. You planned this all along, he accused. You manipulated. Take all the time you need to process this, I interrupted softly, echoing his words from my father's funeral. After all, we don't actually need you anyway. The acquisition process took exactly 2 weeks. Meridian maintained most of Bluecrest's staff, but restructured the leadership entirely. Conrad retired with a generous package, conditional on his son remaining with the company in some capacity. My first official act as the newly appointed managing director was reassigning Elliot to our remote testing facility in the desert. His official title, Legacy Systems Analyst. His job, documenting the slow decline of outdated machinery that, like him, once seemed important but proved unnecessary. He keeps his generous salary but spends his days in isolation, watching dials on equipment we'll never use again. Each month, he receives the same company-wide email showing our growing success with the implementation of my father's final vision, a legacy he tried to steal but now watches flourish from the sidelines. Last week, I visited the desert facility for a routine inspection. Elliot's office was sparse and dusty, his once immaculate appearance now careless. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed. Come to gloat? He asked. I shook my head. Just ensuring company resources are being properly utilized. He laughed bitterly. Is this what you wanted? To humiliate me? To destroy everything my family built? Your family didn't build anything, I replied calmly. People like my father did. People whose contributions you dismissed. This isn't about humiliation, Elliot. It's about consequences. I placed a small framed photo on his desk. It showed my father standing proudly beside a younger me at my graduation. Keep this, I said. A reminder that every system has its breaking point when the wrong pressure is applied. As I turned to leave, he called after me. "You can't keep me here forever." I paused at the doorway. "I don't need to. Eventually, like these machines you're monitoring, you'll become obsolete. The only difference is, they once served a purpose." The desert sun was blinding as I walked back to my car. In the distance, the testing facility stood as a monument to outdated thinking, isolated, forgotten, yet still technically part of the company. Just like Elliot wanted for me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction, it's about reconstruction, building something better from the ruins of what was taken from you. My father taught me that every system can be optimized, even justice. The company thrives now, our client list growing as word spreads about our revolutionary efficiency processes. Many nights, I still work at my kitchen table, refining ideas, pushing boundaries, honoring my father's legacy through innovation rather than remembrance. And sometimes, when I'm solving a particularly difficult problem, I swear I can feel him sitting across from me, pride shining in his eyes as I carry forward what he began. As for Elliot, he got exactly what he wished for. We truly don't need him anyway. If this story of corporate justice satisfied your need for sweet professional revenge, hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of underestimated people who turned the tables on those who wronged them. Share in the comments if you've ever been dismissed at work only to prove your true value later. Remember, sometimes the person they don't think they need becomes the one they can't succeed without. 6 months have passed since that desert confrontation with Elliot. The company, now rebranded as Levente Innovation Systems, has transformed from a traditional engineering consultancy into a pioneer in sustainable industrial design. Our headquarters moved from Bluecrest's sterile glass tower to a renovated warehouse with living walls and skylights that flood the workspace with natural light. It's the kind of environment my father would have loved, practical yet inspiring, where ideas flow as freely as the open floor plan allows. Most mornings, I arrive before dawn. Not from obligation, but because the quiet hours remind me of childhood mornings when Dad would let me sit beside him at his drafting table, teaching me to see the hidden patterns in seemingly chaotic systems. "Engineering isn't just about machines, Adira," he'd say. "It's about understanding the spaces between components, how things connect, how energy flows." Those words guide me now, as I rebuild what Elliot nearly destroyed. When Meridian acquired controlling interest, they gave me considerable latitude to restructure. The first decision was surprisingly difficult: what to do with the remaining Hale influence. Conrad had taken his retirement package and disappeared to a coastal property, but Elliot remained a complicated problem. Legally, we couldn't terminate him without substantial cause, a protection his father had cleverly written into the company bylaws. The desert reassignment was the compromise that satisfied both Meridian's leadership and my own sense of justice. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly Elliot's exile would become industry gossip. Former clients called, curious about the leadership change. Competitors reached out with partnership offers, sensing opportunity in the transition. Every conversation eventually circled to the same question: what happened to the Hales? I developed a standard response. Conrad retired to pursue personal interests. Elliot remains with the company in an analytical capacity. The truth was more complex. Elliot's monthly reports from the desert facility arrived with clockwork regularity, detailed, thorough, and completely useless. He documented the degradation rates of obsolete machinery with the precision of someone who recognized he was performing the same analysis on his own career trajectory. 3 months into his assignment, he requested a transfer back to headquarters. "On what basis?" I asked during our video call, his face grainy against the stark white walls of his remote office. "I've completed a comprehensive analysis of the legacy systems," he replied, dark circles under his eyes. "There's nothing more to learn here." "Then perhaps you'll finally appreciate the feeling of having your expertise dismissed," I said. "Request denied." His facade cracked. "This is personal vendetta, not business." "No, Elliot. This is accountability. The desert facility needs supervision, and you're uniquely qualified for insignificant oversight." After ending the call, I sat in my office, my father's former office, feeling hollow despite having delivered what should have been a satisfying rebuke. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this, wasn't it? That evening, Talia Reeves from Meridian stopped by unannounced. We'd developed a solid working relationship during the acquisition, her practical engineering mind complementing my theoretical approach. "You look troubled," she observed, settling into a chair across from my desk. "Just tired," I deflected. "Liar," she smiled. "I knew your father for 15 years. He had the same expression when wrestling with an ethical problem rather than a technical one." I sighed. "It's Elliot." "The Desert Prince? What's he done now?" "Nothing. That's almost the problem." I explained our conversation and my lingering discomfort. Talia listened without interruption, then asked, "What would Leo do?" The question stopped me short. My father, for all his genius, had never been vindictive. He solved problems. He didn't create them. "He wouldn't have sent Elliot to the desert in the first place," I admitted. "Probably not," Talia agreed. "But Elliot isn't you, and he's certainly not Leo. Some people only learn when consequences affect them directly. And some never learn at all," I said. "True, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to the company, the clients, and your father's legacy. Does keeping Elliot in exile serve those priorities?" I didn't have an immediate answer, which was answer enough. The next day, I called our head of product development, Preena Anand, a brilliant engineer who'd worked alongside my father for a decade. She had declined Elliot's offers of promotion multiple times during his brief leadership, preferring to remain focused on technical challenges rather than politics. "I need your honest assessment," I told her. "Is there any role here where Elliot could contribute without causing damage?" Preena considered the question carefully. "He's not without skills. His business degree and connections were useful for client acquisition. He just shouldn't be anywhere near actual engineering decisions or personnel management." "So client liaison, perhaps?" "With strict limitations and oversight," she cautioned, "and nowhere near Meridian or our other major accounts." I spent the weekend redesigning our organizational structure, creating a narrowly defined role that would utilize Elliot's business background while minimizing his potential for disruption. The position, Director of Legacy Client Relations, would focus on maintaining relationships with smaller, established clients whose projects required minimal innovation. On Monday morning, I called the desert facility. "Pack your things," I told a surprised Elliot. "You're being reassigned to headquarters, effective next week." His suspicion was immediate. Why the sudden change of heart? Not a change of heart, a strategic realignment of resources. When he returned, the change in him was striking. The desert sun had weathered his once smooth face, and his designer clothes hung loosely on his frame. The smirk that had once seemed permanently affixed was gone, replaced by cautious watchfulness. His new office was small but functional, positioned far from both the engineering department and executive row. His first day back, I called him in to establish ground rules. "Your responsibilities are clearly outlined in this document," I said, sliding a folder across my desk. "You'll handle relationship maintenance for the clients listed in Appendix A. You will not make technical promises, modify existing agreements, or initiate contact with any client not on your assigned list." He flipped through the pages, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "This is busy work, glorified customer service." "This is opportunity," I corrected. "More than you offered me at my father's funeral." His eyes met mine, a flicker of something, perhaps recognition, passing through them. "I underestimated you." "A common mistake. One I won't make regarding you." I stood, indicating our meeting was concluding. "Quarterly performance reviews will determine any expansion of your responsibilities. Until then, these boundaries are non-negotiable." As he turned to leave, I added, "Elliot, the company name has changed to Levente Innovation Systems. Please ensure all your communications reflect that." The symmetry wasn't lost on him. His family name erased from the company, just as he'd tried to erase my family's contributions. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. Elliot excelled within his limited role. The clients on his list reported positive interactions. His reports were thorough and timely. He arrived early, left late, and kept to himself. Prina noticed it first. He's actually trying, she remarked during our weekly leadership meeting. His client satisfaction metrics are impressive. People can surprise you, offered Damon Webb, our new head of operations. Sometimes hitting bottom is the only way to look up. I remained skeptical but couldn't deny the data. When Elliot's quarterly review arrived, his performance metrics justified a measured expansion of his responsibilities. I added 3 mid-sized clients to his portfolio and authorized him to participate in non-technical proposal developments. The day I informed him of these changes, he seemed genuinely shocked. "You're serious?" he asked, scanning the updated client list. "Your performance earned this," I said simply. "Continue on this trajectory, and further opportunities may follow." He studied me with newfound intensity. Why give me any chance at all? After what I did? The question deserved honesty. Because keeping you in the desert was about my pain, not company benefit. My father built this business on recognizing potential, not punishing mistakes. Even malicious ones? Especially those, I replied. He believed people capable of calculated harm were equally capable of calculated good, given proper motivation. Something shifted in Elliot's expression, not quite remorse, but perhaps the first recognition that actions had consequences beyond his intentions. As he left my office, I wondered if my father would approve of this approach. Redemption stories were his favorite. He collected them like other people collected art, seeing beauty in transformation. But he was also pragmatic. Trust, once broken, required more than good behavior to repair. I would watch Elliot carefully. Second chances didn't mean erased memories. As autumn approached, the company celebrated its first major milestone under the new structure, a patent for the efficiency system my father and I had developed. The entire staff gathered in the central atrium as Naomi from Meridian presented the framed patent certificate. "This innovation," she announced, "represents exactly why we invested in this company. It will transform industrial energy consumption across sectors while substantially increasing output." My name appeared first on the patent, followed by Leonardo Levente, posthumous. Seeing it displayed publicly brought unexpected tears. I accepted the frame, too emotional to speak beyond a simple thank you. Later, during the reception, I noticed Elliot standing alone by the windows, watching the celebration from a distance. Against my better judgment, I approached him. "You should be proud," he said before I could speak. "It's brilliant work." "Thank you," I replied, studying his expression for signs of insincerity but finding none. "He talked about you constantly, you know," Elliot continued, gaze fixed on the cityscape beyond the glass. "Your father, before you joined the company. Always my daughter the geniuses, this and Adira's revolutionary thinking that." He took a sip from his water glass. "I resented you before we ever met." The admission hung between us, unexpected and raw. "My father believed in my abilities," I said carefully, "but he also believed in this company, including the Hale leadership." Elliot laughed softly, "Until I proved him wrong." "People can surprise you," I echoed Damon's words, "sometimes positively." He turned to face me fully. "Is that what I'm doing? Surprising you positively?" "The jury's still deliberating," I replied, "but the evidence is trending in your favor." We stood in awkward silence until Prina called me away to meet a potential client. As I left, Elliot spoke again. "I never apologized," he said, "for what I said at the funeral. It was cruel and unnecessary." I paused, not turning back. "Yes, it was. I'm sorry, Adira." The words were simple but delivered without expectation or qualification. I nodded once in acknowledgement before rejoining the celebration, unsure what to make of this new development. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out my father's journal, a leather-bound book filled with his observations and insights. I'd been reading it gradually since his death, each entry like having a new conversation with him. The passage I turned to seemed eerily relevant. Engineering Principle 17. Resilience isn't about resisting change, but about incorporating it. The most durable systems are those that can transform external pressures into internal strengths. This applies to people as much as machines. I ran my fingers over his neat handwriting, wondering if he somehow knew I would need these words. Was my willingness to give Elliot a conditional second chance a sign of resilience or weakness? Was I transforming pressure into strength, or simply setting myself up for another betrayal? The company continued its upward trajectory through winter. We secured 3 major new clients, expanded our research division, and broke ground on a testing facility that would allow us to prototype large-scale implementations. Elliot maintained his solid performance, gradually earning limited trust among the staff. In January, an unexpected opportunity arose. A struggling manufacturing conglomerate, Westerly Industries, approached us about potential acquisition. They had fallen behind technologically but possessed valuable production capabilities and client relationships. If structured correctly, acquiring them would position Levente Innovation as an end-to-end solution provider. After initial analysis, I called a leadership meeting to discuss the possibility. To everyone's surprise, I included Elliot. "You've worked with several of their subsidiaries," I explained when questioned privately by Damon. "Your insight could be valuable." The meeting lasted hours, with detailed financial and operational assessments. Throughout the discussion, Elliot remained thoughtfully engaged, offering measured contributions without overstepping. When the conversation turned to acquisition strategy, he raised his hand, a gesture so uncharacteristically humble for the formerly arrogant executive that it momentarily silenced the room. "I have a suggestion," he said cautiously, "but it involves specialized knowledge I gained working with my father." All eyes turned to me. "Go ahead," I nodded. Westerly's ownership structure includes a complicated trust arrangement established by the founder. There's a specific approach to acquisition that would minimize tax implications while protecting their existing pension obligations. He outlined a sophisticated transaction structure that addressed several concerns we'd been debating. When he finished, Prina spoke first. "That's actually brilliant. It's similar to how we acquired Rollins Engineering 6 years ago," Elliot explained. "Few people remember that deal since it was relatively small, but the structure created a template." I studied him across the conference table. "Would you be willing to lead the financial structuring team for this acquisition? Working alongside Damon, of course." The offer clearly surprised him. "You'd trust me with that level of responsibility?" "Trust is earned incrementally," I replied. "Consider this an increment." Over the next month, Elliot worked tirelessly on the acquisition strategy. His knowledge of corporate finance proved genuinely valuable, and his approach remained collaborative rather than controlling. When complications arose, as they inevitably do in complex transactions, he navigated them with unexpected grace. The day we finalized the Westerly acquisition, the leadership team gathered in my office for a small celebration. Champagne was poured, congratulations exchanged. Elliot remained somewhat apart from the group until I deliberately brought him into the conversation. "This structure will save us millions in integration costs," I acknowledged. "Well done." He accepted the compliment with a nod. "It feels good to build something rather than—" He trailed off. "Rather than tear it down?" I finished for him. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I've been reflecting on that a lot lately." After the others departed, Elliot lingered. "Can I speak with you privately?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Of course." He sat but seemed to struggle finding words, a rare occurrence for someone once so glib. "I've received a job offer," he finally said. "CTO position at a startup across the country. The founder is an old business school classmate." This was unexpected. "I see. When would they want you to start?" "Next month, but I wanted to discuss it with you first." "Why?" "You don't need my permission to pursue other opportunities." He leaned forward. "Because I don't know if I should take it. Part of me thinks I should stay and continue rebuilding what I damaged. Another part thinks you'll never fully trust me again. Nor should you. And a fresh start might be best for everyone." His candor was disarming. The Elliot who had whispered cruel words at my father's funeral would never have shown such self-awareness. "What do you want, Elliot?" I asked. "Not what you think you should do, or what others might want. What do you want?" He considered the question carefully. "I want to prove to myself more than anyone that I'm not the person who did those things, that I can create value without stepping on others." And do you need to leave to do that? I don't know, he admitted. What do you think? I thought about my father's journal, about resilience and transformation. I think running from your mistakes is easier than facing them daily. I also think people deserve the chance to redefine themselves. That doesn't answer my question. No, I agreed, because this isn't my decision to make. We sat in contemplative silence until Elliot finally stood. Thank you for not making this easy. I have some thinking to do. As he reached the door, I called after him. Elliot, whatever you decide, the work you did on this acquisition was genuinely valuable. That's yours to keep, regardless. 2 days later, Elliot declined the outside offer and requested a meeting with me and the leadership team. He presented a proposal for a new division focused on corporate restructuring and integration, leveraging the expertise he demonstrated during the Westerly acquisition. This could be a significant revenue stream, he explained. Many companies need transformation but lack the engineering and financial expertise to execute it properly. The team's response was cautiously positive. We approved a pilot program with Elliot as director, reporting directly to Damon with appropriate oversight mechanisms. As the meeting concluded, I felt a strange sense of completion. The company was thriving, expanding in directions my father would have approved. Elliot was channeling his ambition into constructive pursuits, and I had found a way to honor my father's legacy while creating my own path forward. That evening, I visited my father's grave for the first time since the funeral. The headstone was simple granite, engraved with his name, dates, and the phrase he'd often repeated, "Between every action and reaction lies opportunity." I placed fresh flowers beside it and sat on the small stone bench. I did it, Dad, I said softly. I protected what you built and made it stronger. But I did something else too. I paused, organizing my thoughts. I learned that revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, building something so much better that the past becomes irrelevant. A gentle breeze rustled the trees overhead, and for a moment, I could almost hear his laughter, the way it would bubble up from deep in his chest when something delighted him. Elliot's still there, I continued. Not because I need him, but because pushing him away would have made me more like him than myself. You always said the true measure of a system is how it handles unexpected inputs. I think we're handling them pretty well. As twilight deepened around me, I felt a weight-lifting grief, transforming into something lighter, more sustainable. My father was gone, but his wisdom remained, embedded in the company that now bore our name and in the principles that guided my decisions. The rain that had poured during his funeral was now nourishing new growth. The cruel words spoken beside his casket had led to a complete transformation of the company he loved. And the daughter he believed in had proven herself more capable than even he might have imagined. Some might call it justice. Others, karma. I prefer to think of it as simply good engineering, identifying structural weaknesses, applying appropriate pressure, and rebuilding stronger than before. If there's one lesson in this story worth sharing, it's this. Never underestimate someone who learned resilience from a master. You might think you don't need them, only to discover they're the essential component your entire system required. Like, subscribe, and share if you've ever been underestimated only to prove your true value when it mattered most. And remember, sometimes the most powerful response to, "We don't need you," is becoming exactly what they can't succeed without.